Code switching. Now let us see what code switching is. Now code switching is actually the juxtaposition or the placing of two different languages or three different languages in the same speech event. And this comes from Gumpress 1982. Now code switching can be voluntary, you do it deliberately, or it can be non-voluntary and you don't even realize that you're code switching because in the flow of your speech you just draw upon the different linguistic repertoires that you might possess as a bilingual. Broadly talking about the different types of code switching, some would say that there are two types. Number one is code switching that occurs at intersentential level, that is, within a sentence. So you draw upon certain words which belong to English language and you use them in Urdu or from Urdu into English. So this is code switching. Another type of code switching might be that occurs between sentences or at the level of intersentential level, as we might say. Now this code switching can occur at clause level or between sentences. Now, why do people or bilinguals, to be more specific, code switch? This has been a question that the researchers have been contesting with, and there is a lot of literature around that. So somehow trying to synthesize everything, we might say that maybe bilinguals code switch because they try to perform different functions, and for them all these functions actually together are very important in communicating with other bilinguals. So they code switch because at times they might not have the kind of proficiency that they need to talk about certain domains. For instance, if you are giving a lecture in medicine or you're talking about engineering or anything in any specific workplace environment, you might not have access to certain linguistic items in Urdu, so you tend to borrow from other language or English language or any other language that you might have studied that subject in. Researchers also say that code switching performs the function of negotiating linguistic choice. So as we try to communicate, bilinguals try to negotiate which language they might be or the interlocutors might be able to communicate in more facilitatively. So how easy or difficult the flow of communication might be by the use of one language or the other, or the combination of different languages. So they try to ease the communication through somehow testing linguistic choice. So this might be seen actually as a weapon or that bilinguals have with two different strings, and they using those together, they try to reach their goal of communication. Another function that researchers believe that is performed through code mixing or code switching is the maintenance of interpersonal relationships. So when during a meeting, when you are using a specific language, which in the case of Pakistan in most organizations is at least officially English, and then during the tea break, or after the meeting, you crack a joke in Urdu or in your original language, then what you're trying to do is actually sort of highlighting different types of relationships that you are with your peers in. And you highlight a formal relationship with the use of this formal language, and then you emphasize another type of relationship with the use of another language. So you have Myers and Scotton, who gives this model of markedness in language. So what he says is, or what he actually says is, that in certain contexts, certain use of languages is unmarked. That is, it's usual to use those languages, and you use them, and people living in this context actually understand that this is the norm in which things have to be conducted. But when you use another language or bring in another aspect of other languages in the same situation, then this linguistic choice can become a marked choice. So it highlights this marked choice. Actually, it highlights a different type of role relationships. So with a friend with whom you have always been talking in a certain language, you somehow switch to another language, then it might sound something like standoffish, and you might be trying to negotiate a different kind of relationship with that friend. Some researchers also differentiate between code switching and code mixing, and they say code switching is more or less voluntary, and code switching is when you're actually responding to the external cues. You talk to your students and you feel they don't get the point, and you somehow code switch and use their own regional language or the other local language to explain the same context. So you're responding to the language needs of the audience that some researchers would call code mixing, code switching. And code mixing, they would argue, is the use of two languages because of low proficiency in one language or the other one. And it is also because they are simply not aware of the choices they are making. They simply draw upon the 2 different or 3 different languages without actually any voluntary intention to do that.